On today's episode of the DeRaud-Messinger Show, we're predicting Texas versus TCU. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. So to begin, Dylan, as always, we have some basic game info for you guys. The game will be on Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time at Amon G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth, Texas. And the game will be televised on ABC. And Dylan, the Longhorns are favored by 5 points. So get us into that scouting report you got.
Well, Devon, to start us off, I believe that UT will not be winning this by more than 5 points. I think they'll be winning it by more based off what I've seen. Now, to get into the scouting report that you want to hear from me about, I have running back Zach Evans coming off a good game against SMU that obviously TCU did end up losing. But he had 15 carries, 113 yards, 3 receptions, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Devon, this is the guy that the Longhorns defense is gonna want to zero in on, especially with just their susceptibility to the run game. The defensive line is gonna have a lot of work to do. This guy's explosive. If TCU can get the ball in his hands, it's gonna be a long day for those linebackers. And they have a speedster in Tay Barber. This guy's like 5'9", he's short. It's hard to see at times, but when he does get the ball, he's flying past you because he had 114 yards on 5 receptions and a touchdown also last week against SMU. So this offense has the ability, Devon, to take the top off the defense, but for UT to win this game, they're gonna need to obviously key in on that offensive line of TCU and just containing Evans throughout the game.
Yeah, you said Duggan. Duggan's been the Longhorn killer at quarterback, and also you mentioned Zach Evans, a talented running back. We watched him play at North Shore, and he's come a long way, and now he's torching teams on the ground game. For Longhorns, as you said, that's obviously a priority. They're going to have to stop the run, especially because if TCU starts getting in the groove with that run game, they're going to be able to control the time of possession and really just kind of milk the clock. But TCU, Dylan, talked a lot about offense. Gary Patterson is a defensive-minded coach. You know what defense is, Dylan? Come on. But
well, against SMU, I didn't see much defense, but go on, Devon.
That is true. That is true. But he's always got a good safety and secondary in general, and linebackers are usually guys that, play well above where they should be. But overall, they, as you said, against SMU, didn't look too great. They allowed Tanner Mordecai to, I believe, throw for 4 touchdowns. But on the other flip side of that, they also forced him to throw 3 interceptions. One player to watch out for is cornerback Trevius Hodges-Tomlinson. He was a All-American last year and is a preseason All-American this year. He's just one of those guys that's going to be a ball hawk in a lockdown corner, so you can't really throw it his way, most likely. I know Longhorns had a couple of guys that stepped up recently, but against TCU, the air game's not always the way to go. As I said, they force turnovers, so that's something for Casey Thompson to obviously try to limit. And then Quentin Johnston, was the leading receiver for the Horned Frogs prior to last game against SMU, but he did not basically show up. He was locked down. As you said, Tay Barber took control. So look for Quentin Johnston, who was a Texas commit at one point in time, to bounce back here, and Barber as well is going to have potential, game to showcase his abilities because Duggan, like I said, is a Longhorn killer. And Dylan, TCU, they show up for these Texas games. Longhorns fans know that all too well. Now, what are your X factors here?
Well, for TCU?
Yeah.
Or for both teams? Okay, well, for X Factor for TCU, Devon, you touched on their linebacking core and their secondary, but I'm going to be looking at their defensive line. This is a defensive line that led up 350 rush yards to the SMU backfield. So they're going to have a lot to work to do. When you look at the game, their defensive line was just getting shoved around. So I'm looking at guys like O'Shawn Mathis that are going to need to have, put in their best effort. Obviously, like you said, they get ready for these games. It's a rivalry game with UT. They always show up no matter what their record is. They could be 0-5, and it's a high danger level for Texas. But they're going to be having a lot to do today to stop in Robinson and Roschon Johnson.
Yeah, my X factor for this one is Casey Thompson because in order to win this game, as I mentioned earlier, he's going to have to take care of the football. Now, as you said, TCU let up a lot of rushing yards against SMU, and Bijan might follow that trend for the Longhorns in this game, but Casey Thompson, in the scenarios where he's going to have to throw the ball, is going to have to be efficient on those third down plays, but also just to take care of it and limit TCU's ability to try to get back into this game and just take control. And like I said, continue to run the rock and milk that time of possession. But also, the Longhorns on the offensive line, they've looked good these past 2 weeks. I know they played Rice and then Tech in the slaughter fest in that one. But they're going to have to continue that trend. TCU is usually a defensive-minded team, as I said. It's not a Tech team that's all air raid. So they're going to have to step up. And honestly, the TCU linebackers are also, like I touched on earlier, I guess a position group that doesn't get talked about enough. So Bijan, might be not necessarily struggling because, as you said, SMU was able to gash that defense, but the TCU linebackers are always experienced and just a group to watch out for on the offensive line. The O-line is going to have to get to the second level in order for Texas to succeed in this game. But Dylan, what are something that TCU has to do in order to win this game, in your opinion?
Well, what you touched on earlier with Tre'Vius Hodges Tomlinson shutting down the wide receiver group for UT. Xavier Worthy stepped up these past few games, Devon, so it's going to be interesting who they decide to take away, and who is left open is probably going to be the deciding factor in this matchup if they choose to pick on Whittington. Be looking for Xavier Worthy. He had 3 touchdowns last week. He has the ability to get yards after the catch. He's been doing really well. He's a true freshman, Devon, right? So,
yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, so the talent is obviously there. Honestly, in my opinion, I think they're going to be picking on Worthy in this matchup. So look for Whittington to be getting those, I don't know if you're watching the Vikings, but Adam Thielen type plays, little drag routes, 5 yards, and you're the red zone, be a heavy target for this offense, Devon.
Yeah, I think that the key factor, kind of talking about like the X factors, I think they're going to have to force Texas to throw the ball. Casey Thompson looked great last week, so really no complaints there, but Bijan, you can't let Bijan, and now you got Keelan and you got Jonathan Brooks as well, even getting some time. They're all gashing teams. If you want to beat Texas right now, you kind of got to do what Arkansas did and really attack that running game, force Texas to throw, and it's obviously a road game in Fort Worth, which adds a little bit of a extra element to it. But Dylan, speaking of element, danger level here, what is it?
Well, Devon, it's TCU, but surprisingly, I'm going to be going with a 4 again this week, purely because that Tech game, it showed the difference in the coaching staff to me, at least. I mean, this team came out after destroying Rice and then put their foot to the throat of Texas Tech. So I think there's a changed attitude here. I mean, this is another test, obviously, if they can really demolish TCU like they did to Tech. The future's looking bright. I mean, the Arkansas game looks better and better every week, especially after they beat A&M. So Arkansas wasn't an upset, it looks like.
Yeah, that's what the Longhorns like to hear, Dylan. But every loss is an upset for the Longhorns fans. So, my danger level here, I'm going to give it a 5. I was tempted, like you, to give it a 4, but as we know, TCU, as we've talked about, likes to play up to Texas's talent. They've won 2 in a row against the Longhorns. They can make it 3. It's a home game in Fort Worth. Obviously, the crowd's going to get pretty rowdy. But I think, as you were talking about earlier in this video, TCU hasn't looked too great defensively this past season so far, and that's usually their strong suit. So they're going to look to bounce back. But for right now, I'm giving it a 5. Now, what's your prediction?
Well, Devon, I'm going to be going with a 45-35 win for Texas. Obviously, TCU, with Gary Patterson at head coach, they've got the ability to play good defense at times, at least. He can get them ready on some plays. So I'm going to be looking at Texas to have their way on offense, but they need to be careful of those turnovers because that's how TCU is going to stay in this matchup.
What was that, 45-25? Well,
35. 45-35.
That is a high-scoring TCU-Texas game. I got a semi-high-scoring one, too. I got Texas winning this one 34-20. I think in the end, the offense is going to do enough, whether that be Bijan or Casey Thompson. And I think that whichever side of the ball they take away or whichever facet of the offense they're going to take away, I think the other one is going to respond. So like I said, if they stack the box against Bijan, Casey Thompson has shown the ability to beat teams with his arm. Now that's the position you're going to have to put the Longhorns in my opinion. But I think they're going to get the job done, and TCU just, I don't know. I think the magic of 2 in a row for Longhorns fans hopefully ends at 2 and doesn't get to 3. But what do you guys think? Let us know your prediction down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.